Dolphins fans, before you do anything, I want you to just end up pausing this video. Go to wherever you keep like your household calendar and just clear off all of next weekend because we've got a playoff game that we're participating in, baby. Woo! How about that? Sorry if I just blew your ears out there as well, but you know it already. The Dolphins defeated the Jets 11-6, playoff bound. Obviously, we beat the Jets. The Bills beat the Patriots. We get the 7th seed, and we are facing the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Wild card weekend. As of recording this, no date set, no time set. You know what? I'm actually disappointed in myself because I started this recording without grabbing my celebratory beer. So maybe you ought to just pause this again. So you already marked your calendar off for next week because you're busy. We got playoff football that we're going to be attending. And now you got to pause it again because you got to go get that celebratory beer because we talked about it on the preview and prediction video. I said, buckle up, Dolphins fans, because it's a roller coaster season, and we're probably going to be on the edge of our seats the entire year, the entire game. And damn it, we were. And damn it, we were. But guess what? You know who was clutch when it counted? We absolutely need to give it up right now to Jason Sanders because heading into this game, 1 of 5 from 50 plus before the game-winning field goal, essentially the game-winning field goal in today's. We needed all 3 of his makes today, obviously, with the score being tied up until the last field goal and then the safety on the very last play. But talk about a pressure kick from a guy who was already feeling a ton of pressure. And now you put essentially, because the Bills basically had that game won at that point in time. Sanders may not have knew, the Dolphins may not have knew, but that is the definition of a pressure kick with the season on the line, playoffs are on the line. And he goes up there and boots that, and that thing probably would have been good from 60. He put everything into that one. So I've given Jason Sanders a tough time this year. I know a lot of fans have. I know a lot of other analysts and everyone has. So hey, clutch when it counts, give it up when it counts. Jason Sanders, you are my MVP today. I will give you that. You go have a celebratory beer as well. Let's talk a little bit about, it's kind of going to be a little bit sporadic because I got a lot of thoughts. Obviously, the playoffs are on my mind already. We're going to talk more about that as the week goes on. And honestly, there's not a ton to take away today's game. We're talking about an 11-6 game that in that preview and prediction video, like I was saying, we were saying, get ready for an ugly one. Get ready. You're going to be on the edge of your seat despite how ugly this game was. And it lived up to the billing. Like I said, those 2 teams were meant for each other, and it happened. But let's talk a little bit about what we saw on the offensive side of the ball because this is a whole different team when Skylar is quarterback, even compared to when Teddy is quarterback. And it's a whole different ball game when Skylar is the quarterback compared to when Tua is the quarterback because we made running the ball the offense. It was the focal point. That was one of the points that we made earlier in the week. It was like, if you're starting Skylar Thompson, a rookie, 7th rounder, limited experience, 1 NFL start where he got to play, a quarter? You're going to need to establish a run. And even if it's not always effective, but something to fall back on if things aren't going well in the passing game. And look what happened. We ran the ball for 32 times for 162 yards. Now, the bulk of that was the main 2 guys. Jeff Wilson, 72 yards. Raheem Mostert, 71 yards. And by comparison, we still threw the ball 31 times. Didn't feel that way, though. The passing game did not feel like a focal part, an important part of the offense today. It was just kind of there for when we needed it to bail us out of situations. 152 passing yards, less than 5 passing yards per attempt. Those aren't numbers that we're used to in this offense. And going back to the run discussion that we had a few weeks back, I think it was when we played the Bills, I had kind of said, like, we can't just specifically just go and hand the ball to the running back. We got to get more creative with our run calls. And we actually saw some of that today. And it just, chef's kiss to Mike McDaniel on some of those calls. The Raheem Mostert kind of reverse end around. He was breaking tackles, running like a man possessed on that play. That was great. Finally got a jet sweep to Jaylen Waddle. Been wondering where that is all year. Got to see something like that. Toss sweeps from shotgun formation. How about the cojones on Mike McDaniel calling a toss sweep from shotgun formation on 4th and 5? Loved everything about that. Depending on how we're going to be going into this game against the Bills, we might have to continue to get creative with the ground game, continue to make that a focal part of the offense. Like I said, though, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. We'll be talking about it throughout the week. But Raheem Mostert, he did leave that game with an injury. And as of recording this, I do not know the severity. Let's talk about those injuries, because that's a big takeaway from today's game. Raheem Mostert, Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, Brandon Shell. That's just on the offensive side of the ball. So our fastest three guys on offense, and in regards to the offensive line with Brandon Shell, we simply just can't lose any more bodies. We are running out of dudes. We saw an offensive line that needed to actually just get shuffled because our depth is being tested so much. So once Teron Armstead was ruled out, he was a game day inactive. And then once Brandon Shell got out, and you're out those tackles again, we were Greg Little left tackle, Liam Eichenberg left guard, Connor Williams center, Robert Jones got slotted in to right guard, and then Robert Hunt got pushed over to right tackle. Now, if you're looking at this game from like a box score standing, we only allowed one sack. But man, if you watch the game and watch the offensive line, you notice that the pressure just always seems to be there. And it's a guy like Skylar who, obviously, it's a small sample size. I don't want to pigeonhole him into this type of quarterback, but he holds onto the ball. He holds onto the ball a lot longer than what Tua does. And we need that quarterback to be getting the ball, rid of that ball right away when our offense is playing like this. Because the issue is, if we don't end up running like on the deeper plays, if we don't end up running like a max protection with help from a tight end or the running backs chipping and doubling on the edge, when we are trotting out this offensive line, the quarterback always just ends up getting hurried to make the throw, and the plays don't develop. We're not getting that extra half second for the plays to develop and to get those chunk yardages and the downfield plays like we were having with Tua earlier this year. Two guys like Tyreek and two guys like Jaylen Waddle. And that's how you end up with Jaylen Waddle with 44 receiving yards and Tyreek with 23. Oh, you go into that game and say that those guys are going to be held to 67 yards if my math is right. I probably wouldn't have liked our odds. So hopefully Brandon Shell ends up being okay. Hopefully Teron Armstead is able to be back next week. I guess I would say that it's probably a positive that they did let it go all the way up to game time before deciding that he was going to be inactive. But man, that's a scary, scary situation when you're playing in Buffalo against their pass rush. So we'll have to keep an eye on those injuries as we go on. But speaking of injuries, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't talk about Uno QB1, because man, obviously we're still in wait and see mode with Tua and the concussion protocol. And Mike McDaniel, I did catch part of his post-game presser where he said, we're not thinking games. We're not thinking games this year. We're not thinking games next year. That's not the part of the thought process that we're in. We're taking it a day at a time. Now, I do think that some of that is coach speak. He's going to say that. He's not going to say anything besides that. He probably is thinking like, damn it, we need Tua for this game. He's obviously not going to say it. But there was cool. If you saw it, a video did pop up on Twitter of Tua congratulating the guys as they were going into the tunnel. Because I was trying to kind of keep an eye out for Tua during the game. And maybe I missed him, but I actually didn't see him on the sideline during the game. But after the game, congratulating the guys, doing the handshakes, doing the dances, that was pretty damn cool to see. But I don't want to be labeled like, I don't want to be looked at as like a downer by saying this, because today's not to be a downer. Even if you don't think we have a great chance against the Bills, we're in the playoffs for the first time since what, like 2016-17 season? Celebrate today. If you don't mind tipping a few back, have your celebratory beers today. But like I said, I don't want to be considered a downer, but damn it, we need Tua. We need Tua so bad for this game. And obviously, like I said, we're going to talk more Tua. We're going to be talking more Bills throughout the week. So I don't need to go into a ton of details on that today. But honestly, do any of you think that we can hang with the Bills in Buffalo in another cold weather game in the playoffs with Skylar Thompson or Teddy Bridgewater? I honestly just don't see it. We scored 11 points today. We scored 11 points, 9 of them offensively, so 3 field goals against the Jets. Now, I'm not trying to take anything away from the Jets. They have a pretty good defense. But man, it's a good thing that we were playing another injured and inept team right now, because that's not going to get it done against other teams. So I want Tua back. I'm hoping that you want Tua back as well. But man, that was it was an eye-opening. How do I want to say this? It was an eye-opening way to run offense today that we're not used to this year as Dolphins fans. and thank everyone that it worked. But let's talk about this really quick. A cause for concern, and I'm referring to Xavier Howard right now, because we watched Garrett Wilson catch 9 passes for 89 yards. But if you watched that game, tell me it didn't feel like he had 15 catches for 180. And honestly, Xavier Howard wasn't in coverage on every single one of those completions. I don't want to completely throw him under the bus here, but he was on Garrett Wilson for numerous completions. And honestly, I think it's a combination of a few things. We're honestly seeing him get older right now. It happens with cornerbacks. You get to a certain age, a certain point in time, a little bit of your athleticism kind of fades away. And you got these young guys, you got these Garrett Wilsons who are 21, 22 years old, and they've got that athletic edge now. We used to see Xavier Howard almost play like a little bit of like a trail coverage, and he had the speed and the knack for getting to the ball where he'd either knock it down or he would cut in front of that wide receiver at the very end and pick it off. I don't think we've seen that from him yet this year. And another big part of that, like I said, this is layered. He's been battling the knee injury the last couple of weeks. He's had the groins, plural, injury throughout the season. So who knows how much that's impacting him. But we're honestly to the point where we're not seeing the lockdown guy that we once could basically rely to eliminate a wide receiver from the game, or at least eliminate a side of the field from the game, and then let your defense figure out the rest of the pass catchers from there. But the most concerning part of me for Xavier Howard was the effort. There were a few plays out there, and honestly, obviously, I haven't watched it back yet, but there were just a couple of plays out there. You noticeably could tell he just didn't appear to be going 100%. There were some opportunities where he could have tried to tackle or be part of a gang tackle, and he wanted no part of it. He wanted no business on those tackles. There were other plays where Flacco was like extending a play, and rather than continuing to stay with his wide receiver, he seemed to be like, oh, our pass rush is going to get there. He's just going to throw it away. And then a completion happened. He just seemed to like not be giving all the effort. And I know Garrett Wilson did get away with some offensive interference on that one. So I don't want to completely throw him under the bus here. And I will say some good things too. That last drive when they were targeting Garrett Wilson, because why wouldn't you? That guy was amazing today. Xavier Howard shut him down. He did well on certain plays. So I'm not saying he went outright. I'm not saying that he's washed and he can't perform at all. I would have just liked to see a little bit more effort in the magnitude of today's game. It's not like this was a game that we were just coasting by. We were already in the playoffs. This was must win. We needed help. We were on a 5-game losing streak. Needed to see a little bit more effort there. I do have a couple of miscellaneous things I want to get to here really quick as we wrap this one up. But man, how about this? For the 18th straight week, pay Christian Wilkins tonight. That guy is a monster. 6 more tackles today. He's setting all these records for most tackles by an interior defensive lineman. Another tackle for loss. He's got like 15 plus of those this year. The guy penetrates. He blows up plays at the line of scrimmage week in, week out. Find some more damn money, Stephen Ross, and pay this guy ASAP. Another guy that came through today. How about Mike Gesicki? Coming through on that deep ball that I'm about 99% sure that ball was intended for Tyreek Hill. Sort of hit Mike Gesicki like kind of in stride as to where he was running his route. But he obviously didn't think he was going to be intended on that deep ball. And it was still a contested catch. And clutch for him to stay with the play, to stay in the game when his number hasn't just been called just today. His number hasn't been getting called all season. So in order for him to stay involved mentally, physically, make that play, clutch as well. Let's stick with another positive. The first successful coaches challenge of the season. Now, I thought the first play that they challenged of the game was unnecessary. I think Miami, obviously, McDaniel gets crap for this, but he's not the one that's watching the replay. It's the dudes upstairs. Miami needs a new dude upstairs. Find me. My eyes aren't great, but when I put my contacts in, they'll get the job done. We need a new person watching for those plays. But, man, that was a super important call to get that incompletion to Garrett Wilson, to get that correct. So props for finally getting one right. But lastly, I don't want to end on a downer, but here we are. The miscues remained with this team today. And luckily, we played another team that's just as beat up as we are, because otherwise, man, it could have been bad news. Greg Little gets the false start on 3rd and 7, moves it to 3rd and 12. We run the screenplay. I think it was to Waddle. We get some yards back. We go for it on 4th, And Skylar is flushed from the pocket. He decides to not even throw the ball, or he threw it away. Didn't even give us a chance on fourth down. So that resulted in a turnover on downs after it was only 3rd and 7. Connor Williams, the high laser snap to Skylar when it kind of sounded like Skylar was having the headset issue at that point in time. That was 1st and 10 on one of our better looking drives of the game. It ended up being 2nd and 32 and obviously led to a punt. So that's a huge issue. And at one point, we converted the 4th and 5. It was the toss sweep out of shotgun. We proceeded to get a delay of game on the next play, and we had another illegal shift penalty earlier in the 4th quarter in that game. We just had a few more things. Kader Kohu, he typically kind of signs himself up for one bad play a game. His interference came at a terrible time in this game. I thought it maybe was going to be too much to overcome. Luckily, we did. And honestly, that's not a blow to Kader Kohu whatsoever. I'm just saying he typically ends up having these one questionable play per game. Still a young, promising. I think Sam Madison referred to him as the diamond in the rough of this offseason, because that's exactly what he has been. But those are a couple of miscellaneous things. But Dolphins fans, man, let's just, like I said, enjoy this one. We've got all week to worry about Tua, to worry about offensive line, to worry about injuries, to worry about the Bills. I mean, it's the rubber match. It's the game that we wanted after that last game in Buffalo. We're like, you know what? We want to play the Bills again. It was such a great game. Both of those games against the Bills this year were essentially instant classics. The Heat game in Miami, where it came down to the last play, the cold weather game in Buffalo, where it ended up snowing. I haven't looked at a forecast yet. We'll have to see how that goes for this game. But yeah, enjoy this one while we can. We'll talk Bills. We'll talk Tua all throughout the week. But drop your thoughts as well in the comments. Want to hear what your thoughts, your takeaways are. And like I said, let's get ready for a playoff game, Miami Dolphins fans. The roller coaster season isn't over. Hopefully we're still on the way up and we don't come right back down. But let's enjoy this one, Miami Dolphins fans. And until later in the week, Fins